Okay, so what I'm going to be doing now is I'm going to share my screen, okay? Okay, so can you guys see the screen? What you should be seeing right now is the SOSA Corp relational model, okay? This information is in Blackboard, okay? So can everybody see the screen okay? You can see the relational model. You can also see the chats. Yes, good. Okay, so remember, if anybody has a question, then just unmute your mic or send it through the chat. So what we're going to do is that this is the SOSA Corp relational model, and we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tables, okay, that we are that we're going to implement in the database. Okay, we've got an employee table, a department table, a project table, a dependent table, and an employee project table, and all of these are linked through the relationships that we had established. So now what we're going to do is to implement this in Microsoft Access. So what we're going to do is the following. I'm going to open Microsoft Access. And again, please follow through with me while we're working. So I'm going to open Microsoft Access. Now, please be mindful of certain things that I'm going to mention that are important when you're using Microsoft Access or actually any other software where you're going to be doing or implementing a design. There are certain things that you have to keep in mind so you don't have trouble and you don't have to do everything all over again once you've advanced in the implementation of the database in the software. So first, this is Microsoft Access. This is the one that you should have installed or be using. Some of the tutorials that I'm going to share with you via YouTube, those might use a different version of Access, but basically what you're going to be doing is the same. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to open or create a new blank database, okay? So we're going to click here, click it once, okay? And what should appear here is something that says blank database and file name, okay? I'm going to call this SOSA Corp V class or version class. And notice that by default, it's going to create it in your documents file. I am going to change this and put it into another folder, which is the folder of the class. I suggest you create a folder in your computer where you can save your files. And notice something here. It says SOSA Corp V class. This is the name I've given it. This is the name I've given my database. And notice that there's an ending that says ACCDB. Okay, this is the file extension that you are going to be using. Okay, let me see. Somebody had a question. Chat. Let me see. Oh, thank you, Ivan. By the way, again, when I do this, that's coughing. That's not sneezing, actually. And I think I don't have the coronavirus, so please don't worry or worry just as much as you want to. But thank you. So don't be too much worried about me. Remember that I get allergies by this time of the year. Okay, so notice this file extension ACCDB. All of the database is going to be contained into that file. Now this is important because that file is going to begin as a very small file, and once we start adding things to the database, this is information or queries or forms or whatever, the file is going to start to get much larger, okay? And so this is why for the deliverables from now on, they're going to be via a Google Drive link, because at some point it's going to occur that this file is going to be so large that you're not going to be able to upload it to Blackboard, okay? So what we're going to be doing now is we're going to create the database, okay? So this is the name, and I'm going to click create, okay? Now, the first thing that appears is this blank workspace, okay? And the important thing here with this workspace, and be very mindful of the following. There's basically two views that you have when you're working in Access. By default, this is the view that appears at the beginning. This is called the data sheet view, okay? It's kind of like an Excel spreadsheet. This is the data sheet view, okay? By default, when you open it, it's going to show you this view. We're actually going to be using another different view that's going to be called the design view, okay? Now, notice one thing. When we've created the database project, there's already one table here. That's the default table that's called table 1. So it's created the database with one blank table, okay? What we're going to be doing is that we want to implement these 4 tables that are here. So I'm going to start off with the first one, which is the employee table. So what I'm going to do is that here on the left, notice that there's an icon that says view. If we click here, right now we're in the data sheet view. I'm going to change to the design view, okay? Remember, if you have any questions, please comment and stop me at any time. So I'm going to click the design view. Notice that when I click the design view, Access asks me to rename the table. So by default, the tables, if you create a new table, it's going to be called table 1, table 2, table 3, table 4, etc. When I change to the design view, I can change the name of the table. So the first table is going to be the employee table. It's going to be this one. So I'm going to name them exactly the same way I've named them in the exercise. So it's going to be called table employee. And I'm going to click OK. And notice that now I'm in a different view. And again, this is called the design view. Here we've got 3 fields. The first one is the field name. This is where we're going to be setting up each of the fields or the attributes. Next is the data type, okay? It's the data type that's going to be associated for each of the types of fields that we're going to be adding. And lastly, we have a description, which is optional. By the way, for any and all of your designs that you're going to be doing in Access, I want you to fill out the description portion, okay? It's important, okay? So it says here it's optional, but I'm going to make it mandatory. Notice another thing also. When you create a new table, by default, the first field name is ID. Can somebody tell me, what do you think this little symbol is here? What do you think this means? Anybody? Anybody, or I'm going to call upon somebody. What do you think this symbol here means? It's the key, exactly. But exactly. By default, the first field is going to have this tag. That's the primary key. By default, it's going to call it ID. And notice that there's a data type called auto number. The auto number is convenient because if you set that up, it's going to automatically begin in 0. And when you add a new registry, it's going to increment to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's automatically going to generate a unique key that's consecutive, okay? We might use that for some cases, okay? So now what I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to fill in this information here, each of the attributes. So I'm going to start with the first one, which is employee social security number. I'm going to say that that's going to be a number. Oops. I'm going to say that that is going to be a number. And there is a description. The descriptions are on the next slide. Okay. And this is the employee social security number. By the way, remember that you can do this also with me. So do it in your computers if you have access available. Employee name, this is going to be a text, and I'm going to say it's going to be a short text. This is the employee name. Then we're going to have the address. I'm going to say that the address is going to be a long text. Okay. Well, no, actually, I'm going to leave it as a short text. Long text is when you're going to be making comments or something like that. Remember, we can separate the address into the different parts if we want to. For this example, I'm going to leave it like that. Then it's employee salary. Salary, we can define the data type as currency, okay, because it's going to be money. So this is the employee salary. Then we're going to have the employee gender. And what I'm going to be doing now is that I'm gonna take this as an advantage. So in the case of gender, what we would like ideally is to have predefined values, so the user can select. Okay, and I'm not going to get into any sort of controversy here. So we're going to think about a series of predefined values. So what we're going to do here is that we are going to use here at the bottom something that says lookup wizard. I'm going to click this one, and it gives me two options. The first is I want the lookup field to get the values from another table or query. We're not going to use that one right now. We're going to use it further on. I'm going to select, I will type in the values that I want. Then I'm going to click next. And here are the possible values. So I'm going to write male, female, and other. Okay. Then I'm going to click next. This is the label. We're not going to change it. And I'm going to click that it should be limited to the list. And I'm going to click finish. And I'm going to show you how that looks in a minute. Then employee birth date. This is going to be a date. Okay. Then employee manager, yes or no, meaning that remember that we added if it was a manager or not. Okay. Which one, Pedro? The gender? Okay, I'm going to do it again. Okay, oh, well, I'm actually going to do it. I'm going to do it again here on employee gender. Okay. When you're defining the data type, you can go down here where it says lookup wizard. Okay. It didn't let you use it, Alejandro? You should click here. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this one. I'm going to do these again. Okay. So again, I'm going to do it again. Employee gender. Then we're going to click lookup wizard. Then I will type in the values that I want. Then I'm going to click here male, female, other. And then I'm going to click here limit to the list. I'm going to answer first Pedro and then Alejandro. So Pedro, is that clear? And then we click finish. This is to limit the values that are going to be in that field. Is that clear, Pedro? Okay. Now, Alejandro, so what you're mentioning is that when you click the lookup wizard, it says that it can't initiate. If that is the case, that means that your Microsoft Access is not it's probably not correctly installed. Is it an error message that appears that it just says it can't initiate? If that is the case, then we should try two things. Close Microsoft Access, try to open it again and try to access it and try to do it again. If that doesn't work, then you're probably going to need to install it again because something didn't get installed correctly. Yes, Paulina. Remember that you can unmute your microphones. You should be able to talk. So we can make it a bit quicker. Okay, again, let's do the following. Okay, let me finish up the exercise so you have the example. Okay, and we can record it, and then let's see the technical issues. Okay. Yes, because you need to log in with the account that Setis gave you. If you don't log in with some of us, so many of us have different accounts. So for example, you might have a Hotmail account or a Gmail account or any other. So if in your computer, when you access Office, you're logged into another account, then that's going to probably block it. But the Setis account, it's open for indefinitely. Okay, so I'm going to continue with the example if that's okay. If you have questions about the example, then please raise your hand, and we're going to leave the technical questions to the end. Okay, including Alejandro, you would need to restart Access or check your installation because something was probably not installed correctly. So the next field is employee birth date. This is going to be type date time, and it's going to be employee birth date. Then we're going to have the employee manager, yes or no. Remember that we had defined if an employee was a manager or not. And so this is going to be a yes, no box. Is employee a manager? And then we're going to have the department ID. I'm switching over too quickly, I'm sorry. I'm just filling in this information. Next, we're going to have the department ID and then the employee supervisor social security number. So department ID is going to also be a number. And the employee supervisor social security number is also going to be a number. Okay. So this finishes up our table. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Ivan. So I'm sorry, yes. Birth date is date time, correct? And employee manager is yes or no. Thank you, Ivan. There you go. Thank you very much. Okay, so this is the table, the employee table finished up. So one important thing, in Microsoft Access, you're going to see this bar here. This is going to be opening a lot of tabs. Be very mindful that the information that you put in here in the design view or the spread or the datasheet view is not saved until you close the tab or specifically say that you're going to save it. So my recommendation, try not to have many tabs open or things are going to get confusing. So once I finish with this one, I'm going to click that I want to save it, okay? And now we're going to create another table. I'm going to create the department table, okay? Create table. Again, it opens up in the data sheet view. I'm going to change to the design view, and I'm going to call this table department. And I'm going to fill in the fields. There's just 3 fields: department ID, department name, and department manager social security. So the first one is going to be department ID. It's going to be a number. It's the department ID. I'm going to leave it as the primary key. Then it's the department name. Okay. It's going to be a short text. And then it's going to be the department manager social security number. Okay. And this is done. Okay. And we're going to close this one. We're going to click save. Okay. Now we're going to do the project table. Create table. We're going to go to the design view. This is going to be called table project. Oh, let me see. The department table should be called table department. And let me stop here. We have a question. Okay, so I'm going to do it again. Okay, so first, I'm going to delete this one and I'm going to do this one again. To create a new one, we go here to create. Okay, and then we click table. This is going to create a new table. And then remember that it's always going to open in the spreadsheet view. And so we're going to go to the design view. Okay, and this is going to be called table project. Okay. And the project has two fields. So it's project ID, which is going to be a number. Then the project name. And the department ID. Oh, we missed one in the, okay, let me answer the two questions before. So first, this one is finished up. We're going to close, save. I'm going to go with Leonardo first. We missed a field in the employee table called MS. Okay, I'm going to open the employee table. I'm going to go to the design view. And we missed one, which is manager start date, correct. So I'm going to insert a row here. Employee manager start date. This is going to be date. Okay. And correct. And close and save. Now, Pedro, how do you rename a table? First off, the table should not be open. Okay. The table should be closed, and you just click here, click the left button, and there's a rename function. Okay. As long as the tables don't have any relationships yet, we haven't done any relationships. As long as we do that, then you can rename a table. If the table has information or links, then you might not be able to rename. Oh, to add a field, you can just go here. Remember one thing, okay? So to answer Lucia's question, I added a field. So I positioned myself right here, and then I said, insert row. And that's the way you insert it. Now, remember one thing. I added it here just because it's here in the list that I have. But remember one thing, the fields can be in any order. It doesn't really matter. I'm just doing this to be congruent with the example, but they can be done in any order, okay? Okay, I'm gonna add one more, try to add one more table before the session ends. As soon as the session ends, I'm going to send you guys a new link to open up okay, just so we can finish up this exercise. Okay, I'm going to create a new table. This table is going to be called employee project. I'm sorry, it's going to be called dependent. I'm going to go to the design view. This is going to be called table dependent. And we've got 4, which is a dependent ID. This is a new field that I've added. Remember that the dependent was a weak entity. So I've added a dependent ID as a key, and I'm going to leave that as an auto number. Then it's going to be dependent name. Then it's going to be dependent gender. And we're going to use the same lookup wizard where we're going to see say male, female, other. And the dependent relationship. This is also, I'm also going to add this as a lookup wizard field. And we're going to say child, spouse, other. And lastly, the employee social security number of the dependent, okay, of the person who is dependent of. And I'm going to, okay. So right now we have 4 tables. We're missing 1 table. I'm going to close up this session and open up a new one so we can continue with the exercise. I'll be sending you the new link in a couple of minutes, okay? Okay, so I'm going to log off right now, and then we're going to continue finishing up the exercise once I send you the link. Thank you. See you in a